You often hear in the news different articles about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or maybe this country or that country they're stockpiling grain. Um, the gold reserves that different central banks and countries have. Those are all strategic stockpiles of things that they deem are critical or essential that they need to have on hand. So let's talk about your own personal strategic stockpiles. What do countries have? Well, again, they have food, fuel, different raw materials. They might stockpile extra transformers, breakers, widgets. Some countries stockpile maple syrup or cheese, things that they want to have on hand to help either with economic reasons to maintain prices, or if there's a bad year, they can supplement the supply from their stockpiles. So personally, what would you have? Well, let's look at fuel. What do you use fuel for? Well, you could use it for cooking, heating, transportation, lighting. We want to look at multiple options wherever we can. We want to look at how stable is it? How long does it last? So if you're looking at, let's say my farm, for example, I've got a diesel tractor, a gas vehicle, an electric vehicle. So I have to have different types of fuel on hand. Now, we have multiple vehicles that are gas, but arguably, if I had a diesel vehicle, then I would just need one fuel type. So there's pros and cons. If you can't find one fuel type, can you use another? Diesel lasts longer than gasoline. Propane lasts longer. There's different sizes from the little 1 pound bottles all the way up to the big tanks. You can use that for lighting, for heating, for cooking, right? Different options. Kerosene for lamps. So look at what you're going to use it for, and are there multiple options for it? There are dual and even tri-fuel generators. So if you want to generate electricity and you have a generator that can run on gasoline or propane, gives you more options. If you can't find one type of fuel source, maybe you can find another. Propane tanks last longer. Maybe you can use them for your barbecue or small cook stove and to power your generator to get electricity. Wood. Do you have a wood-burning fireplace or stove? Solar. Are you tied to the grid? Do you have solar panels and battery backup? Do you have a generator backup? There's different sizes of storage vessels depending on what you can accommodate. If you have a small apartment, small house, something like that, you can get smaller options. If you have space, you can get larger options. Water. Are you connected to the municipal system? Or are you totally standalone off-grid with your own well? Does your well go directly into your pressure system in your house, or do you have a cistern in between? How big is the cistern? Are you able to capture rainwater? Do you have a pond or dugout? Do you have any surface water? Are you by a river? Are you by a lake? Do you have bottled water or other water stockpiled? With any of these options, we want to look at the redundancies. So if you can be grid connected, either to the electrical grid or a municipal water supply, and then if you have solar, or if you have rainwater catchment, or if you have a well as a backup, or if you just have bottled water. containers of water as your options. Look at the different kinds. Some are renewable, some are not. If you're set up to catch rainwater, then in a sense, as long as you don't get large periods of drought, you can capture that water and it's renewable. Versus if all you have is bottled water, once it's used up, that's it. So look at the different options. For your cistern, do you have it plumbed so that you can take one of those components out? If you're on a property and you have a well that goes to a cistern and then to your house, is it a direct line, or do you have loops built in so that if the well goes down, you can use the cistern while the well's being repaired? If the cistern needs cleaning or has problems, you can pull straight off the well. And then do you have backup water as well? So think about those different options. It's the same with, we'll go back to the fuel. Some are renewable, some are not. The wood, if you have a big wood lot where you can access a wooded area, in a sense, that's a renewable product versus your fuel, your gasoline. Maybe you're set up and you can make your own biodiesel. Solar, wind. What options do you have? Is it a finite or is it a renewable source? Hydroelectric. Food. You should look at short, medium, and long-term storage. So short-term, just your basic, 72-hour, 3-day-a-week supply in your pantry, canned goods, Mr. Noodles, extra box of cereal, some bread in the freezer, extra food on hand that might not last too long, but at least you have some. Medium term, so maybe a year to maybe 3 or 5 years in storage. A lot of canned goods can easily do that. A lot of your pastas, if stored properly. All kinds of different things you can look at for that medium term. And then your long term. That's where you get into the freeze-dried stuff. You can do it yourself in the pails that you get. You can store your rice and your wheat and your pastas, things like that. Some last longer than others. Look at the conditions you're storing them in. Is it cool and dark? Some have 25, 30 plus year shelf life. Some that you use regularly have long shelf life. Honey, sugar, salt, all of those things. And again, look at what can you grow? What's renewable versus what is finite? As in the stored food you have, your canned goods, your buckets of food, that's finite. Once that's gone, it's gone. You might have a lot of it. It might last a long time. But how do you renew it? Are you growing that food for your renewable source? Are you foraging for it? Maybe you can pick mushrooms and berries on your property. Do you have a garden? Do you have fruit trees? Do you have a fish pond, a stocked lake, or a spot you can fish nearby? Are you a hunter? Are you a trapper? Look at different ways. If this fails, what's my backup? Don't keep all your food and water in one spot. If you lose that one area, that one building, that one room, all of your supplies are gone. Have redundancy, have multiple locations, have different ways to acquire it. Medical. If you take medications, some of them store really well, some of them don't. Your prescription medications. Do you have a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year's supply of that? What can you afford? How long does it last? What's your rotation of it like, just like your food? Over the counter. Aspirins, Tylenols, ibuprofens. Comfort ones, cough drops. Do you have antibiotics? Your supplies. Do you have bandages? Do you have dressings? Do you have disinfecting products? Do you have tools and instruments? Tweezers, nail clippers, crutches, fluid replacement, a stethoscope. Do you know how to use that stuff? Do you have the supplies on hand? Security. There's a number of things to think about for this. So first one that comes to mind is if you have, firearms, you want ammunition. And again, multi-purpose. Think of things that can do more than one thing. So you can hunt with your ammunition to acquire food, and you can use it for self-defense. Security lighting. Maybe you want to have a spare motion light in a box on a shelf in case yours fails. Don't forget the bulbs. You may have electricity, you may have the device, but if your bulb burns out and you don't have any spare bulbs, that's a problem. Communication equipment, again, you can use it for information gathering. You can use it to communicate to your community, to friends and family for security purposes. Do you have multiple ways to communicate? Texting, cell phones, landlines, walkie-talkies, CB, ham. What are your options? Think outside the box too. I was talking with a neighbor the other day and she said, "Hey, I can see your place from my place. We should set up some flags so we could notify each other if we had to." Awesome idea. Maybe lights. Different options. Fencing. So do you have extra fencing material on hand? One, just because you always need it. I'm always out fixing fence. If my horses don't break it, a deer or an elk or a moose could damage the fence, pop all the staples. So have staples on hand. Do you have extra fencing wire? Do you have extra barbed wire so you can quickly increase your security posture and your defenses if you need to? It's going to be tough to run out and get it if you quickly need to deploy it or use it. Do you have it staged where you need it? Traps. It can do double duty. If everything goes south and it's a life or death situation, you can put traps out to help your defense. They're illegal in normal times. Even trapping. I mean, you want to get the licensing, you want to get the training, you want to know how to do it properly, to do it in a humane way. But think multiple uses for all of your items. Critical spares. This is a big one too. So what are those items you need to have on hand? I know I've gone into Canadian Tire before and said, yeah, I need a bulb for my truck, for my headlight. Oh, they're on back order. Maybe next week. Okay. Wiper blades, belts, filters, oil. What are those things you need? So looking at just at your vehicle, do you have oil, windshield washer fluid, transmission oil, brake fluids? Do you have belts? Do you have the fuses? Everything, the bulbs may be fine, but if your fuse blows, your lights might not work. Do you have spare fuses and the little tool to take it out? Do you know how to do that? Tires. Do you have a spare tire? Maybe you have summer tires and winter tires, so that gives you a little bit of redundancy if they're on separate rims. Do you have chains for your vehicle? Spark plugs. Extra seals, carburetor kits. What do you need? If you had to fix it, what would normally go wrong? Maybe you've got a generator. Do you have a spark plug for the generator? Think about the critical spares that you need. What have you had to replace? What has stopped your process from working? What has disrupted it? Maybe the element went in your stove. Now, at some point, you can only have so much redundancy and so many spares. That's why for the electrical grid system, they don't just have a whole bunch of giant transformers sitting around. Cost prohibitive. But look at what has gone wrong with some of your appliances before, some of the things that are involved in your processes. What has failed? What have you had to get? Is it a single part? Again, oh, the lights went out. Why? No, the bulb was burnt out. I had to go buy bulbs because I didn't have any. Toilet paper. Do you have extra on hand? Extra coffee filters. Extra coffee. Well, that's the food stuff, but I mean, think about the different items that you need. Thanks very much. Like and subscribe, and think about your strategic stockpiles.